dear friends. Welcome once again to this series of lectures on the history of Christianity in the ancient period. These talks are prepared by Father Mahimai Das, a Silesian priest from the province of Bengaluru. This is the 14th video in the series. If you have not watched the earlier videos, please check the links given in the description below because they will help you understand today's topic much better. The material for these talks is mainly taken from the book A Short History of Christianity in the Ancient Period, which is used at Christu Jyoti College.
In the last video, we discussed the persecution under Emperor Diocletian and the various events leading up to the promulgation of the Edict of Milan in the year 313. In today's video, we once again go back to the 1st century and examine various heresies and controversies that troubled the Church in the pre-Constantine period. A study of these problems will shed light on how the Church managed to survive some of the serious problems and how it clarified and asserted its doctrines.
At the very beginning of Christianity, the basic teachings of the faith were summarized in short statements called creeds. These creeds taught Christians to believe in one God in 3 persons: the Son of God, the Holy Spirit, the Church, baptism, forgiveness of sins, resurrection of the body, and eternal life. Those preparing for baptism had to learn these creeds carefully. But naturally, not everyone accepted all the teachings fully. Some people accepted only the parts they liked and mixed Christian teachings with strange ideas from other philosophies and religions. This is how heresies began in the early Church.
Now, what exactly is a heresy? A heresy is a teaching that goes against the true faith of the Church. At this point, we must introduce another term which is somewhat similar to heresy, that is, schism. Unlike heresy, a schism is a division or breaking away within the Church. Please remember, someone or a group can break away from the Church either due to heresy or even without a heresy. On the other hand, a heresy may lead to a division, but not necessarily. A person who spreads a heresy is called a heretic, and a person who causes a schism is known as a schismatic. We have already seen in the 7th chapter the schism of Novatian, who broke away from the Church and established his own churches. This is the fundamental difference between heresy and schism.
The heresies in the ancient Church created confusion and division among Christians. In fact, in the words of Saint Cyprian, sometimes they were almost as dangerous as the persecutions faced by the Church. Why? Because many of the people spreading these ideas were not ignorant and ordinary persons. Many of them were very intelligent, influential, and charismatic. Some were even admired for their courage during persecution. So naturally, when they taught some wrong doctrines, many ordinary Christians were attracted to them and were swayed by their ideas.
But the Church remained alert. The bishops and church fathers carefully examined these teachings and defended the true faith. Interestingly, these controversies actually helped the Church explain its doctrines more clearly and systematically. So instead of destroying the Church, these challenges made the Church stronger. The heresies also indirectly caused the growth of Christian literature, as both sides wanted to prove their position in their writings. Let us now look at some important heresies during the pre-Constantine period.
The first heresy we will see is the Judaistic heresy. This heresy came mainly from some Jewish Christians who still strongly followed the Mosaic law. Even after becoming Christians, they insisted on practices like circumcision and Jewish rituals. And not only that, they also expected pagan converts to follow the Jewish law. We have seen this tension already while describing the Antiochian and Pauline communities. Now remember, the early Church was slowly moving away from strict observance of the Mosaic practices. Therefore, tension naturally developed between these Jewish Christians and the wider Church.
As we have seen in the chapter on the Jerusalem community, after many of them moved from Jerusalem to Pella, they became even more separated from mainstream Christianity. By the middle of the 2nd century, many Christians considered them too Jewish. Over time, their teachings became extreme. They rejected the divinity of Christ. They considered St. Paul an apostate, an enemy of the Mosaic Law. They even revised the Gospel of Matthew and used an Aramaic version of it.
These groups later became known as the Ebionites, meaning the poor ones, or sometimes the Nazarenes. Now things became even stranger in the 2nd generation of the Ebionites. They developed unusual ideas, such as a theory of 2 creations, continued circumcision along with baptism, daily ritual baths, very early marriage to avoid sexual sin, and even using water instead of wine in the Eucharist. So gradually they moved farther and farther away from mainstream Christianity.
Now we come to one of the most complicated heresies of early Christianity, Gnosticism. Actually, Gnosticism was not a single doctrine. It was a whole collection of ideas and religious philosophies. Sometimes even the different Gnostic groups contradicted one another. The word Gnosticism comes from the Greek word gnosis, which means knowledge. The Gnostics believed that salvation comes through special, secret knowledge. According to them, ordinary believers lived by simple faith, but the perfect people possessed higher spiritual knowledge. You can already see why this attracted many people. It made them feel spiritually superior.
What are their main ideas? The Gnostics believed that the material world is evil, the supreme God is distant and unknowable, and between God and the world there are many intermediate spiritual beings. They also believed in a constant struggle between light and darkness, good and evil. According to them, every human being contains a divine spark trapped inside the body. Therefore, salvation means escaping from the material world and returning to the spiritual world through secret knowledge. They created many strange myths to explain these ideas. One story says that darkness desired light and captured only its reflection. Because of this imperfect mixture, our world contains only traces of goodness.
Now, some Christians who had been influenced by Gnosticism tried to combine these ideas with Christian faith. They claimed that Christ came mainly to give secret knowledge to a select few. Only those who possessed this knowledge would be saved. But this directly contradicted Christian teaching. For Christians, salvation comes through the passion, death, and resurrection of Christ, not through hidden knowledge. Gnosticism greatly affected the church, so much so we can see its traces in the early church. For example, certain prayers were not taught to the unbaptized, and only the baptized Christians were taught certain creeds.
The Gnostics also despised the human body. Therefore, they denied the true incarnation of Christ, and they rejected the resurrection of the body. Some even taught that the divine power descended into Jesus at his baptism and remained until the trial before Pilate. So the actor in the Passion was no more than the animate element with its appearance of matter. Basilides, a Gnostic, for example, held that the sufferings of the martyrs were a scandal. He defended God's providence and affirmed that no one suffers who has not deserved to do so. If Jesus suffered, he must have sinned.
Now, here we see something very interesting. Gnosticism attacked also Christian morality. Although the Gnostics despised matter and the body, their moral behavior often went in two opposite directions. Some practiced extreme asceticism, while others became morally careless and indulged in all sorts of immoral activities. Some even argued, just as gold remains pure even when placed in mud, the spiritual person remains unaffected by sinful actions. You can imagine how dangerous such thinking could become.
Gnostic ideas spread through many writings falsely attributed to biblical figures. These are called apocryphal writings. Some examples are Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Mary, Acts of Thomas, Apocalypse of Peter, Apocalypse of Paul, etc. But several simple people considered them as inspired books of the Bible. This was because they thought that they were in fact written by the apostles themselves. However, Gnostics wrote them and gave biblical pseudonyms to get acceptance from the people.
Some of the more important Gnostic teachers included people like Valentinus, Cerinthus, Basilides, Marcion, and Bardesanes. There were not only Gnostics, but there also existed prominent Gnostic schools adhered to by several disciples. There were Valentinians, Marcionites, the Italian school, to which belonged Ptolemy and Heraclion, and the Oriental school, to which were attached Axionicus and Bardesanes.
According to the Fathers of the Church, Simon Magus, or Simon the Magician, who appears in Acts chapter 8, is considered to be the founder of Gnosticism. He is said to have written a work named Great Tidings and to have attracted a great number of believers towards Gnosticism.
Next, we come to Marcionism. Marcion was a Christian Gnostic and was one of the greatest opponents of the Church in the 2nd century. He was an excellent organizer and attracted many followers. Some of his followers even died as martyrs during the persecutions. Marcion wanted Christianity to return to what he believed was its original purity. He emphasized strict discipline, celibacy, and asceticism.
But his main problem was his understanding of God. He argued that the God of the Old Testament was completely different from the God of the New Testament and the God revealed by Christ. According to him, the God of the Old Testament was a harsh and violent God, while the Christian God was a loving and merciful God. He argued that the God of the Old Testament was not even the Father of Christ. The God of the Old Testament was a partial God who loved only the people of Israel, and to show his love to them, he punished and destroyed other people. The Old Testament God was one who perpetuated enmity among nations and taught eye for an eye and tooth for tooth. If then, the Creator God is the evil tree which cannot bring forth good fruits. He argued, how was it that God, if he was good and omniscient and almighty, did not know how to prevent the sin of Adam?
Therefore, he rejected the Old Testament completely. In fact, Marcion even compiled his own version of the Bible. He accepted only the Gospel of Luke, and even from the Gospel of Luke, he removed its first 2 chapters, as they spoke about the temple worship and covenant made to the people of Israel. Marcion also accepted only some letters of St. Paul.
The Church strongly rejected these teachings because Christianity believes that the Old Testament and New Testament are connected, and the New Testament fulfills the Old Testament. Actually, one important result of this controversy was the development of the biblical canon, the official list of inspired books. Church fathers like Irenaeus and Tertullian strongly opposed Marcion. Irenaeus, for example, developed the theory of gradual revelation, in which God treated men as servants before making them sons, and they first learned obedience before they could respond to love.
The next important heresy is Manichaeism. Manichaeism combined elements from Zoroastrianism, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Babylonian religions. So it was really a mixture of many traditions. This was a Persian form of Gnosticism founded by a man named Mani, born in 216 AD. However, he fell out of the favor of the Zoroastrian priests and was crucified in the year 276. In spite of bitter persecutions of the Manichaeans at the hand of the Romans, Manichaeism managed to reach as far as North Africa, Italy, Spain, and even China. The great Father Augustine was a Manichaean for some time before his conversion.
The religion spread widely, even to North Africa, Spain, and China. What are the main teachings? The Manichaeans believed in two uncreated beings, a good one and a bad one, which are eternally opposed. Both of them developed by emanation, the first man, that is, the kingdom of light, and the first devil, that is, kingdom of darkness. A mingling of light with darkness resulted in the rise of the present evil world. Jesus, the impatibilis, that is, who cannot suffer, came to free the world of light from the world of darkness. Since Jesus' doctrine was misunderstood, Mani himself came as the paraclete promised by Jesus.
The Manichaeans practiced 3 seals. They prohibited impure words, the use of flesh, meat, and wine. This constituted the seal of the mouth. They also prohibited menial work like killing, stealing, and fighting, which is an offense to the world of light. This was the seal of the hands. Thirdly, they prohibited marriage, which made the seal of the bosom.
Prayer and fasting constituted an important part of their cult. They also had a sort of baptism and a Lord's Supper. The only one feast that they celebrated was the memorial celebration of Mani's execution and his ascension.
Our next heresy is Chiliasm, also called millenarianism. The earliest Christians believed that Christ would return very soon, perhaps during their own lifetime. We have indications in the Gospels that the early Christians believed in the imminent second coming of Jesus. Even St. Paul believed that it would happen in his own lifetime. But as time passed, Christians gradually realized that the church would continue longer than expected. This aspect we have already seen in the chapter on the sub-apostolic period.
However, still some Christians interpreted the 21st chapter of the book of Revelation very literally. They believed Christ would return and establish a glorious 1,000-year kingdom on earth. That is why this belief is called Chiliasm, or millenarianism. According to this teaching, Christ would reign for 1,000 years, then there would be a general resurrection, followed by the final judgment. This movement became popular in the 2nd century, but gradually declined after Christianity received freedom under Constantine the Great. However, similar ideas continued to appear later in history and can still be found in some sectarian groups today.
Thanks, dear friends, for your patient listening. In our next video, we shall discuss some more heresies of the 2nd and 3rd centuries. If you liked today's video, please share it with your friends. Our next video will come after 2 weeks. If you have any clarification or observation to make, please leave it in the comments section below. Bye till then.